Hi there, we're again in Pink Sofa Conversation. This time I'm delighted to have Joanne Lockwood. How are you, Joanne?
Hey, good morning. How are you? I'm fine. This is sunny England today. Yeah, it's
Yes,
lovely outside.
sunny
Yeah,
England, very much
yeah.
indeed. So Joe and I, we know each other from the True London events that Bill Bowman runs. I had the pleasure to be part of some of her presentation, sharing her views on what she does, and she's quite of a disruptor in the world of HR and talent. So that's why I'm so glad that you're joining us today, Joe. Tell us, for those that don't know you, what do you do?
Well, yeah. Thanks for the introduction. I would class myself as an inclusion and belonging specialist. So I work with organisations throughout the UK, Europe, and elsewhere. I do stage keynote speaking. I run workshops. I take part in panel discussions, and do a lot of these interviews. But my passion really is about helping talent acquisition teams, hiring teams, de-bias or try and remove bias from the process to give a fair opportunity to all people. And I can talk a bit more about how we do that through tech or through how we do that through retraining people. And I also work with HR teams around employee engagement. So really understanding how people feel, what their experience is, and to try and get some alignment of what employers' brand and values and culture they think it is, and actually the real employee experience. So when you can get those two aligned, you've got really happy, engaged employees. That's where we start to leverage this inclusion sort of power where people feel really engaged and they want to contribute. They're going to give more to the company when they feel that sense of belonging. So that's what I'm really trying to do is encourage companies to think in those sort of terms, not just hiring women, not just hiring a person of colour or something. Yeah. So it's not about necessarily the picking out diversity blocks. It's about making everybody feel welcome and feel that they belong in the organisation, and then making sure there's equity where we amplify people who need amplification. People need more support. They need more accessibility. They need more allowances, and we understand that people of different faith have different needs in the workplace at different times. So it's making sure that everybody has that feeling of safety and they have a voice.
Yeah, I love the idea of belonging because I think that's very relevant nowadays, even more and more. And I remember I was reading this article about Generation Z and how crucial it is for them, the idea of belonging, that the values of the companies that you work for align with your values. So it's becoming, if something, even a more relevant concept. But I guess that the first step for your clients is to knock on your door and say, Joe, we need your help because we know we are biased. How can we change that? Because I guess that's the first step, not to acknowledge that there is a problem.
Yeah, organisations come to me and they say, we don't know where to start. We've got this big massive decline. We're focused on maybe gender pay gap reporting, maybe disability pay gap reporting, but we really don't know where to start. I've been tasked internally to look at this and I need some help. So this is why I would come along and talk about engagement surveys. I would talk about engaging C-suite, engaging senior leadership team in this process, because we can't have this sitting way tucked into the bottom of the organisation. It's got to be really amplified right to the top level. So that's where I would start, really getting in there. And I'd be prepared to walk away if I don't feel the organisation really is serious and just want to do a tokenistic gesture. There's no point in everybody having this conversation. I need that C-suite buy-in, sponsorship at the top level. If we have this sort of concrete ceiling, the D&I only goes as high as a higher sponsor. If the chair, if the CEO, if the C-suite really aren't behind it, it's just not going to go anywhere. So yeah, that's where I would start. Employee engagement surveys, and helping them understand their vision, their values, their culture. What are they trying to achieve? What's their why? Because if I give them a D&I roadmap, it's my roadmap, not theirs. So when we look at IT projects, we look at all these projects, they always end up not succeeding because people didn't buy into it, they didn't communicate it. So it's very important for organisations to own their own D&I strategy. They've got to find their why. Why do they want to do this? Is it because they want to hire more women, or because they want to enrich the experience at all levels by having different perspectives? Then they can start understanding why it's important.
Yeah, I guess the why is also the big question that even the employees will turn around and say, why? Why do I have to do suddenly all this new compliance training just because you've created a new policy for inclusion? So it's really important that you understand the why. The biggest question that I always get asked in all the webinars when I take part, when it comes about, programs like yours or any kind of program from HR, is how do I convince the big bosses that this should be a priority. Do you have an advice? Because that's the question I get for learning, for a new ATS, for any kind of software related implementation and change, is how do I convince the guys up there?
And that is often the challenge. When I talk about this situation, is we've got the two sides of it. We've got it's the right thing to do from a people perspective. We know morally that we want to be more inclusive. We don't deliberately set out to exclude people, but we do. So we know it's the right thing to do. But the second side of it, there has to be a business justification. And it's really trying to persuade people that what they're doing, okay, is not okay. Many senior leaders will say, well, the business is doing okay, they're doing fine, why change? The monoculture has worked. We don't have to justify hiring men, we just hire men. Now we've got to start justifying hiring women. So how do we rationalize that? But what I think is important is we get this why. They understand what their need is. The reason by being more diverse and more inclusive is you're more representative of your customers. You understand your customers better, you understand the people you serve better. If you're talking about the government of a country, how do you feel if the government of the country was all men, all white men? So as a black person, as a woman, you look at your government thinking, you don't speak for me, you don't have, I have no voice. Yeah. So I need to feel that I'm being represented by the companies I buy from, that they're making products for me, they answer the phone to me in a way, when they greet me in their shop or their premises, I feel the service is personal to me. So if you expand that, that's the why. So the companies want to be more agile, more relevant to society.
Innovative,
all those things, we know that. But still, the status quo is hard to break. It's kind of working as it is. So if you think about where we are now, with COVID, lockdown, working from home, we've now disrupted the status quo. Now is an opportunity to sort of, all the reasons we said we can't do that, we can't have flexible working, we can't have this working from home. Now we are. So let's look at all the things we were doing, reframe them and start from a yes we can. How can we make that work? Rather than saying, oh, it's just too difficult.
Absolutely. And so I don't know who was talking to, they were saying, oh, I can't wait to go back to normal. And I'm like, well, I hope we don't go back to normal. I hope that this is an opportunity to say, okay, now we're in a different world. How can we really change that? So Joe, on that point, how do you see this coronavirus situation evolving the agenda of inclusion? And me asking that is because I think, from my understanding, from the pulse that I get from the industry, is inclusion was number one on the agenda. It was really a priority for most organizations. Now with the crisis, the money, companies really struggling financially, we may neglect the fact that we had this agenda of including people, of having a healthier culture in our organization. How can we balance that out? What do you see happening in the future?
Well, I don't think the priorities changed. I think the priority should still be inclusion, but maybe the priorities within inclusion are flexing. So well-being, mental health, flexibility, understanding that often women are suffering or more impacted by this remote working than often men are. And that's not being sexist, but often when you think about single parents, most single parents are often women. Most single parents who are women often have education, childcare, homeschooling that's conflicting with their job role. We look at people, most women tend to have lower paid roles. They're more impacted by furloughing, by redundancy, by business shutdowns. So we've got to understand how it affects different people from different backgrounds, different genders, and race and ethnicity different. We've also got to understand that most of our leaders aren't necessarily trained in empathy, in vulnerability, in connecting with people. We're often leading from a distance. And now what we're finding is leaders need new tools. So we have to put more effort and more training to make sure that leaders understand how to communicate individually, understand perspectives and individuality. Because one remote worker is not the same as another remote worker. You can't, someone who's a great employee in the office may not be a great employee remotely. Some people are extroverts, they need company, they want to feel that energy around people. Now some people are quite happy working from home, knuckling down. So we've got different sorts of people with different personality types, different challenges. We've got parents with children at home. So you've got parent A, parent B working for different companies, living in a home that wasn't designed to be a workplace. We haven't got the space. We haven't got the internet connection. We've got people with poor broadband connection. We've got people working on their kitchen tables. We've got people working on trays on their laps, on their sofa. So the experience is not one size fits all. So when we talk about inclusion, we're now looking at the employee experience and engaging with the people on a one-to-one basis and saying, is it working for you? How can we help you better? So it's just moving the priority, say, from being maybe the traditional diversity model into being very person-centric. How can I get the best out of you? Recognizing that you don't own an employee now from 9 to 5, you own chunks. So you can have an hour of me, an hour of me, an hour of me, spread out the day. I'm going to need to do this, I'm going to need to do that. I've got my sick relatives, or I've got anxiety about my relatives having COVID, or I've now got to do my click and collect and deliver food to people. So there's a whole lot of stuff that we have to do. And employers, I think, by being inclusive, recognize the needs of that human being to cope with the situation and not be unfeeling, not being too focused on business as such. I'm not saying don't focus on the bottom line, don't focus on the but think about how you communicate that in a human way, not in a purely balance sheet way.
Yeah, I guess that it's very much important to push the idea of transparency when it comes to create a culture in which people are empowered to knock on your door as an HR function and say, this is how I feel, this is what I need, this is my situation. Because sometimes when we talk about inclusion, and I remember one of my colleagues, Emma Ware, she was talking about the menopause. So we did a series of conversations about the menopause, and that's a private thing. It's like you going through something in your body and something's changing, and you need to be the one knocking on the door and expressing this maybe to HR because things are changing. So you have to have transparency, you have to be able to share, and you feel vulnerable in front of people. So there has to be the right dynamic. But often HR is not seen like a space you would go and get naked in a emotional way. How can we change that?
Again, that's culture. If you feel you can't bring your whole self to work, if you feel you can't have a conversation, and you're so right, some, let's just say, traditional HR departments have been more like the police, more like security, more like rules and regulations.
Yeah.
You only went to talk to HR when you were being disciplined or being told off, or maybe lucky getting promotion. But HR was always this sort of like, oh, what do they want?
Yeah. What happened?
Yeah. Whereas the more modern, the more transformational businesses, HR is part of the team. The HR business part of sitting is part of the organisation. So they're there as a service to you, not as you're not serving them, they're serving you. They're part of they're having the business transform, they're being agile, they're making sure the business is resourced in the right way, that people are functioning at their best, not creating rules. I mean, traditional HR department love rules. They want to create a rule for everything. And often we create a rule for the one that affects the many, rather than dressing the one. It's the way HR has been sort of maybe painted. And I know many HR professionals out there who are watching this and going, no, we're not like that. And that's fantastic. There's some great forward-thinking HR
great examples out there, of course. Yeah.
But I have met some more traditional, old-school HR people that still exist, and they still are very rule-based, very can't-based, risk-averse, which is fine. Be risk cautious, but don't be risk averse. Think about the opportunities that can generate by saying yes occasionally, or how can we make this work. So HR needs to be more approachable. Leaders need to show their vulnerability. Just because you're a leader doesn't mean you're not a person as well. You're a human being. You may have the same anxieties. You may have the same issues at home. You may have broadband issues. You may have parental responsibilities. You may have care responsibilities. Just because you're a leader doesn't mean you're invincible or invulnerable. You have the same things. So leadership has to pass up the chain. So from the top down, everybody has to be able to show their vulnerability, to be able to talk about things. It's okay not to be okay. We're in Mental Health Awareness Week at the moment.
Yeah.
It is okay to not be okay. It's okay to share. It's okay to be vulnerable. But what we need to make sure is the culture is right, so that my vulnerability isn't used against me. Oh, Joe's weak. We need to be careful of Joe. What we need to say is, actually, Joe's human. And when Joe's struggling, we value the fact that Joe tells us, because we now know how we can help Joe. Yeah. Rather than pushing me to live where I suddenly snap. And we go, why didn't you tell us? Well, if I told you, you just thought I was weak. So by working with me through my struggles, through my vulnerability, being very personable and human with me, it means I'm gonna feel safe with you. And when I feel safe with you, I feel trust in you, I know that I'm gonna give my all to you. But as soon as I detect you don't care about me, you just see me as a cog, then my motivation, my belongingness, my voice, my passion, I'm going to start doing less than I could, just do the minimum. We all see it when we're demotivated, we have a bad manager, all of our passion disappears, all of our care disappears. We're vulnerable to cyber. If you look at the stats, people who are not being treated fairly, being discriminated against, not being part of the team, are more likely to be a cyber security threat, more likely to steal data, more likely to be careless, more likely to not observe the rules and regulations and stuff. They have this sort of like, you don't care about me, why should I care about you? So again, building this very person-centric, caring, empathy, and I think what organisations can do is think about this empathy person as a core part of their business. And I love to bring Star Trek into this. If you ever watched Star Trek Next Generation, we always had Deanna Troi on the bridge of the Enterprise, and Deanna Troi was the empath. She always had that human factor. How do people feel about this? We got Riker who wants to shoot everybody in there, and Picard, the magnificent leader here, and Data, the data person, thinking about the facts and figures. But you have to have this blend on the bridge of all these different personality types, and empathy and human connection is a real core part of any high-functioning team.
So I guess that when we do an inclusion project and we do the survey, the pulse, we understand the values of the organizations that we want to achieve and who we've hired, we may find out that we've actually hired people that don't fit our culture. And so eventually they may have to move on, and then we have to include it in our recruitment process and train, because you use two words that I think are quite powerful. It's, software. We can help with software. We can have a strong inclusion approach, but also learning. So there's a lot of learning included in this process when we try to re-educate or relearn or teach something to our people.
I mean, you picked up there, someone doesn't fit our culture, we need to maybe make it big. So what is our culture? Who says our culture is right? Does our culture dictate who we should hire? Does that mean we get more bias? Oh, this person is not like us, they don't fit in with our culture, therefore they don't fit. Actually, what we should be doing is saying, our culture's this, Joe's culture's that. What we're really looking for is shared values, shared mission. So the culture is one thing. This is how we talk to each other, how we treat people, how we make people feel, the jokes, what's etc. in the organisation. But our values is what we're trying to produce. So my values would be hardworking, honest, reliable, passionate type things. And that if those align with the corporate values, the company values, that's great. But the fact that I want flexible working, the fact that I don't drink, the fact that I don't want to go to the pub, the fact that I don't want to stay late, the fact that I do my hours that I'm expected of. If the company culture is I want you to work all hours and I want to own you, that's who's right. So sometimes what we have to do is we have to bring people in with a slightly different culture to expand and enrich the culture of the organisation and then celebrate that. This is where we talk about inclusion. We're valuing people for who they are. So as long as my values align, as long as my passion aligns, as long as I'm with the company and the way it's forward, I don't have to go and be a drinker on a Friday. I don't have to want to go to the pub. I don't want to have to go to the wine bars. I don't want to have to come to the Christmas party. I like eating my lunch in my car at lunchtime. I don't want to talk to people. That's fine. That's where the companies need to understand that they need to maybe incorporate somebody else's culture into their own for that enrichment purposes. So we don't do culture fit, we do culture add, and we do values, and we do mission type fit.
I like that, because sometimes the conversations that we have between the women in the office or my friend is, oh, I just really don't feel like going to the pub with all these guys and stay there and be drinking beer. I don't want to be in that moment. And sometimes you may feel like you have to so that they see you, so you try to go every so many times. So it's true. I really like how you've giving me the understanding of the differentiation between values being what builds and holds the whole concept, and then culture being something that you can have multiple cultures that come together and create this amazing universe where everyone is welcome because your values are aligned and you believe in this same mission and these beliefs that do really bring people together.
That's it in a nutshell. That's the difference between values and culture. And companies need values, they need culture, they need brand, they need mission, and they want people who are passionate and feel this sense of belonging to achieve those goals.
Yeah. So Joe, if I was still HR, which I'm not, thankfully, it's too much pressure. I'm happier in marketing. What would be your top tips for me to really reconsider and try to change a little bit, or at least explore and have a pulse and understanding of what culture do I have, what values do I have, how can I be more inclusive and less biased as a team in my organization?
For me, it always starts with asking people, talking to people. The second element, once you've asked, you must do. Yeah. If you ask me my opinion, you ask me how I feel, and then you do nothing with it, that demotivates me even more. That makes me less engaged because why do I bother? You ask me, it doesn't make any difference. Nothing ever changes around here. So ask me and know who I am. So when I say I'm happy, I'm sad, you understand who I am as a person. So you can say, well, Joe's happy at this point, but someone who is different to Joe isn't happy. So what's the difference? Where are we getting it wrong here? So then you can create these actionable insights. You can create a feedback within the team. A leader, a first line manager, whoever they may be, can then start to say, well, actually, my team aren't feeling it. We compare my team with another team internally, and we can benchmark. We can say, actually, the experience my people have versus these people isn't as good. What are we doing differently? Then we can share best practice between teams.
Yeah. And
then this is the part of the start of getting voice, getting action, getting communications going, understanding how people are motivated in different ways. So this is the kind of people science underpinning any diversity or inclusion initiative. Then we can start valuing people. Do all of this before we start hiring for diversity, because we hire without getting the culture, without getting the environment right. What we'll end up doing is we'll end up bringing people into a toxic environment, and the first thing they'll do is just walk out the back door. Yeah. So we need to understand who our people are, what is good, what is bad, our employee experience. Then we can start looking at our candidate experience. How do we treat people through that process? And we capture the demographics. We understand who we're attracting, what sort of people are coming in. Maybe not identifiable, then we can look at who we're hiring. So we're attracting 50-50 men and women. We only actually hire 70-30 men. So what's going wrong there? Why are we dropping off? Yeah. And then we say we're actually losing more women than men that we've hired. Why is that? And then we realise that more white men are getting promoted than black women. And we can start looking at the metrics there. So for me, there's the human side, but we've also got some data and metrics so we can benchmark ourselves and judge. So I think if organisations are looking to do something, it's get some quantifiable data and get some qualitative feelings about how people are feeling, but also understand who those people are.
Yeah, I think the data point is so powerful because sometimes people have feelings, they think this is what's happening, and when you look at the data, you're like, actually, that's not even true. Not more men have been promoted, or you may feel that men earn more, but when we look at the data, that's not even true. So the data point always brings us back to something that's tangible, like a reality. So I love the idea of like throwing a survey, understanding what's happening in the organization, be communicative, call it newsletter, call it communication, create groups within the organization. There's really a transparent conversation. And then sharing best practices and tips within teams in a cross-functional way can be really enriching, because there will be departments that by nature have a way of working that is not maybe the same as, I can imagine, a sales team to be quiet, everyone on their own goals, and then marketing tends to be more collaborative. How can, in a cross-functional way, enrich the best practices from one group to the other? So no, those are amazing tips.
The other thing you mentioned there about engaging with staff, I mean, think about staff networks. Most big organizations have staff networks, faith, gender, etc. What are they for? What's their purpose of the organisation? Are they talking shops? Are they places, the echo chambers where people just, or are they groups that organise pride, or they do They do food celebrations. We have hashtag weeks. Is that all their function is, to bring that belonging? How many companies are actually leveraging those staff networks, the ERGs? Do they have a network of networks, a shadow board? Does someone at the senior leadership team sit in these staff networks? Do they actually have actions? Are they sponsored? So when a business is making a product launch or a premises opening or making some key decisions, do they run it through the staff network and say, look, we're about to do this. We'd like a lens from all of you people. We'd like to see what do you think as a woman, as a black woman, as a disabled person? We're doing all this stuff. What do you think? Rather than it being the other way around, where people find out after the event and there's been no consultation. So without treating it like an old-fashioned trade union, but we can still leverage these staff networks, the ERGs, the leaders of these communities, to get their opinion, do a litmus test, and involve people. Because we said about right at the beginning of this, it's about having voice and feeling a sense of belonging. If you're asking people their opinion and they're part of it, they're going to buy in with their vision, their values, their passion. As soon as you disconnect, they're going to go, oh, we're doing it again. They're off on one and making all these crazy ideas. Yeah. If they'd have asked me, I did the job day to day. If they'd have asked me, I could have told them why it's going wrong. So again, this is kind of leveraging the power of the hive, if you like, the network of people you have as people who have got more finger on the pulse of sometimes an organisation, that you can actually get better, more diverse thought processes out.
I think there is almost like a primitive feeling if you let people have conversations in small groups without you knowing that they will riot against you. There is a little bit this idea, which is absolutely ridiculous. And why sometimes HR needs to be hands off and say, hey, we are enabling you either through software now that everyone's at home, creating communities or opening up groups where you can have conversations that are off the record. You're in a safe space, no HR is there, whatever happens there stays there. Of course, you have to be respectful to each other. And then, let people engage and have open conversations so you can learn from those exchanges.
I'm not saying that things like agile project management is the nirvana of everything, but if you look at some of the principles, you have someone giving you their vision at the beginning of the project, and then people interrogate that vision and they create these sort of these individual products that need to be developed, and you break those products down and you have your backlogs, and then you just do little sprints. And the key thing is back to daily communication. You're always talking to each other. You're asking three questions: what have you achieved today? What are you achieving next? And what are your blockers? And you're always involving people. You're getting very quick information on a micro level, on a day in, day out basis. And you can apply that across other business functions as well. It doesn't have to just be a system project. It could be any change management project, any business organizational structure changes. So by breaking it down to use those simple techniques, communication, short, sharp sprints, empowerment, so we've got empowered teams to make decisions. And I think when you talked just now about that kind of insecurity in leadership is one of the issues, which is why, again, we need to be thinking about how we train our leaders, how we select our leaders, not just promoting technicians, not promoting on time served, not promoting on popularity, on people that have these real collaborative, vulnerable empathy, EQ, rather than just pure IQ, or the command and control, the rod of iron type leaders. We want influential leaders, people who can motivate people to achieve more than they even thought they could themselves. And that's where I think businesses of the future are going to benefit and transform the business quicker, when you have these empowered teams driven by leaders who can motivate and engage people.
Yeah. Joe, what's next for you? Do you have any coming up plans? Anything exciting in your agenda?
Click and collect. That's going to be a highlight for the weekend. No, seriously, in business terms, doing lots more of these kind of webinars and videos. I ran an event Tuesday this week called True Inclusion. So it's an online, so for people who've heard of the True series that Bill Ballman founded, I ran a True Inclusion. It's an inclusion-focused True event last year in London. And I ran a virtual one where I had 115 people register for it. Amazing. I think I had a peak of 92 online at once. We ran for about 4.5 hours in small little rooms, and people were just having conversations. And I'm getting some amazing feedback on how that's gone. I'm really loving it. So my plan is to do another one. I think my plan is to do it monthly. So the third Tuesday is my aim. And my next plan is to run one in the Pacific Coast time zone in the States at 9 o'clock. So yeah, bringing it so we can bring it over to another continent, and then try and create this evolving community around inclusion. So it's not just an event; it's actually a community that is pervades across events. So that's an exciting project. I've got a podcast I'm going to launch. I've got a book I want to finish, and at some point in there, earn some money.
Wow, it seems like you're really busy. So Joe, if people want to contact you, we will put in the video your LinkedIn and all your social media so that they can contact you and hopefully get you in their organization to give them support, because from what we've learned from you today, you really need someone dedicated to put a lot of thought and love into that project. It's not something that you do overnight. It takes time, effort, and a person being focused on that and prioritize it. Otherwise, it won't happen.
I work well with organisations where I come in kind of as a mentor to the D&I teams, a critical friend sometimes, or someone you can push in front of the C-suite to take the arrows in the chest, and I tell it like it is, sort of thing. So sometimes bring me in as an advisor, a mentor, or a consultant, however you want to use me, in a sort of small project type way, to give you a kickstart, to give you some, maybe a buddy. You just need someone to sit with you and help you on this, and that's kind of why I work best.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time, Joe.
Pleasure. Really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.